The movie Wicked opened hot, and it should not have been any question whatsoever whether it was going to make $1 billion. But now, people are beginning to wonder. And wonder they should, because the residents of Oz are not catching on, because Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, and more have made Wicked into something that's very, very woke indeed. And it may be sending audiences away looking for something else that meets their more sensible needs. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Come one, come all. You are all welcome here on the Pro Channel, where our job is to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, drive Hollywood back to the sensible center by giving them the sensible things, the truths they need. We want them to make money, we want them to do well, and we know that it would be sure swell if they would employ strategies that help them do so. Folks, the strategy we hope you will employ to help us do well is click that like button. Today we're talking about a number of major faux pas for Wicked, including that they are now having Mattel sued, as we predicted, class action lawsuits over horrible mistakes they made. But that's not all. Wicked is also facing calls from people who are very angry at them to, hey, knock it off, because they are moving into absolute extremist positions with the marketing and with the messaging surrounding the film. We'll explain it with the panel. You click the like button, and here we go. We're gonna have to be careful in how we read this, so just hang tight, folks, as I go through this in a way that is not objectionable to our media partners out there. All right, just breaking, and this out of Variety, and thank you to Tom for sending this our way. Out of Variety by Rebecca Rubin, it says Mattel sued over Wicked dolls that included a link to a naughty website on packaging. Now, we said this was likely to happen, and we said that Mattel was in a really bad situation because of this. So here's what it says.
Yeah.
Mattel is being sued for mistakenly printing the URL for a naughty site on the packaging for special edition Wicked dolls. According to court documents, a South Carolina resident is launching a class action lawsuit. I sounded like Mexican Iron Man right then, and it's probably him, by the way.
That was perfect.
Yep. After purchasing the toy for her young daughter, Mike, what are you doing now? Who visited the website that had nothing to do with the Wicked doll. The toy company mistakenly listed a similarly titled website that is not a place for kids to go, rather than the official page for the Universal Pictures film starring Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. The plaintiff alleges that Mattel did not offer a refund and believes she and her child suffered emotional distress from the misprint. These scenes were majorly into what that website shows. The lawsuit reads, plaintiff's minor daughter immediately showed her mother the photos, and both were horrified by what they saw. If plaintiff had been aware of such an inappropriate defect in the product, she would not have purchased it.
Did it accidentally lead to the Snow White trailer?
Oh, no. No. More class action lawsuits on the way. But that's not all, folks. That's not all. That's not just how bad it is for Wicked. Not only are they facing class action lawsuits, Mattel, at this point, but if you take a look at this out of USA Today, this just launched today as well, by Tamia Folks. It says, is Wicked an allegory for the presidential election? Why it's resonating with black women? There's an effort underway at the same time that they're facing this class action lawsuit that we predicted. And by the way, the fact that it's a class action means anybody whose kid visited that site or could have visited the site is going to get in on the action, and it's going to be majorly expensive for Mattel. But at the same day that they're dealing with that, there is an effort underway to really make Wicked into a divisive, politically charged movie, even more so than it already is. Let me read some of this to you. Nakai Mitchell paid over $100 to see the Wicked movie 4 times since the film's release on November 22nd. Initially, Mitchell, who had never seen a stage production of the Broadway musical, was drawn to see the film because of Ariana Grande, one of her favorite musical artists. Decked out in hot pink fur bucket hat, a bright pink top, forest green cardigan, and a curated makeup look. Oh, wow. Seems like a very eccentric person. She strutted into a Holly Springs, North Carolina AMC theater expecting to watch a lighthearted story about friendship and sisterhood. But on premiere night, she found herself crying uncontrollably, which probably needs some therapy. while watching a green-skinned young woman grapple with being ostracized for her appearance, power, and desire to advocate for others. I remember sitting in the theater and being in such a deep emotional state that I had never felt in my entire life when I first watched it. I felt really seen. For Mitchell, the story's underlying narratives about racism, discrimination, and privilege directly parallel her own upbringing as a young black woman. Sentiments she's felt more dramatically since the 2024 presidential race. You see what they're doing? Growing up, she says, I went to a private Christian school in the South. It was all white. And I was friends with a lot of Galindas, people who in the midst of the BLM movement and Floyd abandoned our friendship because I spoke too loud and my voice was just a little too distinctive and a little too sharp.
Pretty racist to me, if
for their eyes and ears at the moment.
No, this is projection here. This is the problem. When you say that
dressed in green bucket fur hat, Jonas, she's clearly a very reluctant individual who was singled out by a bunch of mean Galindas.
Right. It can't be the thing that people are saying what it is. It has to be this other thing. It has to be that they have some kind of character flaw, as opposed to white people at a small Christian school, wherever it is in the South, saying, we just don't want to deal with whatever insanity you're bringing your way. If this was a person that spoke reasonably on a regular level, instead of this bundle of emotions that is ready to fall to tears at the mention of getting any praise during this press tour, she's not making her case for her perspective having legitimacy in the real world.
Right. Well, I'm just always worried when we put people in articles who say that they cried uncontrollably and experienced something they had never felt before in a movie. Because it's like, there are very few movies that I can think of that should have that sort of epiphany moment for you, where you would have maybe 10 times in your life total loss of control of your emotions because it's just so meaningful. Like this, people don't have this kind of experience even when their kids are born. Like they don't cry uncontrollably. And, so the idea that you would do that in a musical, there's something just a little off. And so I worry when I read articles like this, because I tend to think that the article is taking someone who might not need more public attention and then hyper empowering their megaphone and spotlight for a political cause. And as we look at this, by the way, continuing back into the article, it's a bad day for Wicked, right? You've got their class action lawsuit and then USA Today trying to put them distinctly into a very hyper-partisan position. At the same time, Moana is running away from Wicked. Cynthia Erivo, who plays Elphaba, says, I think maybe I was designed for it and ready to perform that role of Elphaba. She believes Black audience members and people from underrepresented communities connect with the character because they had to squash or suppress aspects of their identity to make other people feel comfortable. I can't tell if this is an article about Wicked or if it is an article about Matt Walsh's Am I a Racist? And that's a problem. It's a problem for Universal. It's a problem for Wicked, because whether they're right, whether they're wrong, whether we're dumb and ignorant and we just don't know how to validate this, the bottom line is it's going to hurt the bottom line. This is going to wipe out hundreds of millions of dollars of potential box office, because the people on the margins who would consider going to see the film, if only you didn't do this sort of thing, you're losing that. So right. It's a noble sacrifice of hundreds of millions of dollars. But Wicked, which I gave an 8.5 out of 10, should be a $1 billion box office success. And it is imperiled that potential success.
When I look at things like this, and I hear this woman talking the way that she's talking, I've known people like this where anything that happens, they see their pet issue in whatever that is. And she has it from several directions here, because to quote her, no one enters this space as a Black queer woman of color that was born on a Thursday, or whatever it is that she wants to claim to be. And I'm sure it'll change in a year or two anyways. This is the kind of thing where someone sees their victimhood wherever they go. And we saw this with a lot of reviewers of any kind of media, even if it's not intended to be queer media. They will put that lens on top of it. In fact, Area Hanacrante
Queer coding, I believe that's called.
Right. So there's a particularly insane review of Picard season 3 that I remember hearing, where somebody was trying so hard to put queer coding on one of those characters feeling different, and that different thing ended up being a tie to the villains. And so they were saying that, well, the entire thing is trying to say that these people are trying to take over the world, or that queer people were trying to take over the world. Like, no. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. That's probably a too Freudian of an analogy in this particular case.
And actually, something related to what you're saying, Jonas, is what's going on with, that was the joke I made earlier with the character, the Marissa Bode, who plays the character in a wheelchair, who actually happens to be in a wheelchair in real life too. And here's where the problem lies in having someone play a character who shares the same disability as said character. She is sitting here acting like, okay, it's fine to make fun of, somebody having a house dropped on and all this other stuff, but I'm in a wheelchair in real life. So these kind of jokes that you're making, or these kind of things that you're saying about the character, are ableist and wrong and mean. And it's like, see right there, that's the problem with this, is now you're not allowed to dislike the character because she is actually in a wheelchair. See, so they're drawing some comparison and a parallel there. It's like, no, it's kind of like also with like the Moses Ingram thing. Just because people are, saying stuff about the character in the story choices, or maybe even her acting, that doesn't necessarily reflect on her race, right? So you're the ones who are drawing that comparison.
We live in a world, Tom, where Jamie Foxx could not play Ray Charles. Completely, like we've moved to a place now where if you don't share the same disability, you can't play that character. If you we have pigeonholed and curtailed and siloed actors into only being able to play exactly who they already are. And then that means that if you criticize the character, you're criticizing the actor, because there's no difference anymore.
It's not acting.
Exactly. And yeah, that's what makes it a problem, right? Because then you can't, and not only that, yes, were some of the comments possibly a bit over the line, maybe, but the reason people were saying she deserves to be disabled and I want to dump her out of the wheelchairs because they dislike the character, because the character is supposed to be a mean witch. Don't forget that this is the individual that the song "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead" is being sung about, right?
Right.
It's like, did you forget that part? Like, nobody is supposed to like your character. Just like the whole problem with Wicked I have to begin with is that, it is ground zero for a lot of this woke. Let's see what the villain is just a misunderstood. No, there's a clear distinction between what's a villain and what's a hero. And this is a big problem between a lot of this stuff. And I know I'm kind of going off into left field here, but look, this Wicked thing has been just a bane for me, because as somebody who is a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz and knows a lot about it historically and culturally, a lot of people are making excuses for this movie, when I feel like this movie is a part of the problem of what we've been dealing with for the last few years.
It's
there's
a big part of me wants to be like, yeah, let the women and the gays have their fun with it. That's fine. But also, we have sacrificed enough already.
Right.
So maybe I want to take one back that's going to sting.
Where you get to empathy can go too far, to the point where you say that your enemy has some fair points, and therefore you start excusing evil in the name of good. And that is completely unacceptable, and leads to comments like those from Rachel Ziegler. And
remember too that Wicked, as I've said, it's a musical. It had a huge opening. It really, I think it needs to hit, what did Valiant say? 750, 800 million is what it needs to break even. And really and truly, given what it is, it should be $1 billion contender. And the marketing has been so terrible, whether it is Mattel with these adult links on the toy boxes.
They spent like a ton on the marketing too. That's the other thing.
Huge amounts of money. Erica, do you think that the marketing, and do you think this toy issue is hurting Wicked? And I know it's going to be a success. That's not what we're debating. We're debating the opportunity cost here. Do you think that they're losing audience over this kind of thing?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's not my cup of tea for the reasons that Tom just laid out, because I'm an original Wizard of Oz fan, and I don't like this whole blurring the lines of good and evil and the whole misunderstood villain. That I've had a problem with that from the get-go of this story. Um, if I were raising a little girl, I wouldn't be encouraging the movie. I wouldn't be encouraging the toys, just because I wouldn't want her to pick up on essentially learning what's a toxic relationship between two people. This whole justifying, like what Jonas was just getting at, that's a very toxic characteristic trait of a toxic relationship. I got people in my own family and relationships like that. So I just see red flags everywhere. I really wouldn't be promoting this in front of
Right.
my little.
You don't want to normalize toxicity, especially with your kids.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of, it leans in that way. And like Tom was saying, I'm hoping there is going to be some changes with this, because there's nothing wrong with something being right and wrong objectively. We have to get back to that, because this is ridiculous with this whole, blurring the lines of good and bad, right and wrong. I'm sorry. Like, there are just things very right, very wrong.
This is the movement that's been going on for the last 30 years of people trying to excuse their own bad behavior and trying to normalize it. That is what it's not new. It's just has built and built and built and built and built.
Right. There are no real.
Yeah.
Right. So now we have people going, oh, my behavior is okay and excusable, and we need to normalize it. And I always say this: if you have to quote unquote normalize a behavior, it's not normal.
No. Yeah, exactly.
No,
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my biggest problem with it too. Because then the other side of this, and not to go spoiling the second half of this movie for anybody who may not be aware of what the story is about, they go out of their way to make the wizard a very bad person.
Yep.
And justify a lot of the stuff the witch does. And not only does this go against a lot of the original books, it also goes against the MGM film that this is built upon. And again, I reiterate a little bit what Eric is getting at here, is that this is going to be the first Wizard of Oz anything a lot of little girls see.
That's a good point.
They definitely didn't see Oz the Great and Powerful.
And a lot of people's excuses is, oh, this is not the same thing, or this is its own thing. No, they have to build the whole marketing campaign, and the whole idea of this whole story is predicated on your knowledge of the MGM film and turning that on its head.
Yeah. Thank you. Exactly. I don't understand. Oh my gosh. I hit it on the nail. That's irritating.
You have to remember this fan fiction work was written in the 90s. Like with
yes,
the book.
It's proto woke, but it is so woke and on the nose woke, I guess, in the book that it's scary.
You know what?
In the movie, I don't know how bad it is. I haven't seen it yet. I have full disclosure. I know the play really backed off of a lot of that stuff. But from what I know, they added a bunch of stuff back in for the movie, because you got 2 3-hour part movies here for a play that was only 3 hours.
Now that you guys remind us that this was created in the 90s, it's making sense to me why it's called Shiz University. And yet again, folks, we have come to the end. But what a video it has been, and we hope you agree. Folks, if you had a good time with us, consider clicking that like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell, and drop a comment right on down below. We care about your thoughts. Folks, we also want to invite you to partake in thatparkplace.com. Of course, www. You get the idea. Thatparkplace.com. It is the website telling the truth, and it is a rising star across the web for pop culture news coverage and analysis. Go over there and bookmark it today. Folks, we're bookmarking you as a great guest that we appreciate. Until the next time we have the honor of spending time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, folks, you better believe it, keep having fun.